Hey YouTube, I'm Lisa and this is Lizozom Cooks. Now today we'll be making a Swiss roll. I personally always thought Swiss rolls must be from Switzerland, right? Wrong. They're actually a cake that is popular in many countries, and in most of them it's called a roulade from the French word to roll. The name Swiss roll actually originates from the United States, where in the late 1800s someone said jelly rolls doesn't sound like a cool name, so let's change the name to Swiss rolls to make it sound more fancy. Seems like it worked, right? Now they can be flavored with many flavors. They can be vanilla, chocolate, matcha, fruit, berries, just name it. But today we'll be sticking to the classic, and we'll be making a vanilla flavored sponge cake. We'll be filling it with raspberry puree, whipped cream, and blueberries. So it's going to be super light and airy. Let's roll. For our recipe today, we're going to need 3 eggs, 60 grams of cake flour, 60 grams of sugar, 30 milliliters of milk and vegetable oil each, 250 milliliters of heavy cream, a squeeze of lemon, 1 tablespoon of confectioner sugar, raspberry powder or raspberry jam, and some blueberries. The first step of creating our Swiss roll is preparing the sponge cake. Now, a sponge cake is unique because it's leavened by using whipped eggs and not baking soda or baking powder. The basis of this type of cake is a meringue. So we're going to separate 3 eggs and whip the egg whites in a very clean bowl, now that's important, with a hand or a stand mixer. When the eggs start to get kind of foamy, add a squeeze of lemon, about 1 tablespoon, and that will stabilize the meringue. Many recipes call for cream of tartar, but lemon or even white vinegar do just fine. Then we're going to add about half of the amount of sugar we're using, 30 grams, and that's going to make the meringue really stable and, of course, sweet. Now keep whisking until you reach that soft peak consistency. And remember, all the air you're putting in there right now is what's going to make this cake delicious and light and airy when we bake it. Now is the time to take care of our egg yolk mixture. We're going to use the remaining 30 grams of sugar and combine, and then we're going to go in with our milk, our vegetable oil, about half a teaspoon of vanilla, and our 60 grams of sifted cake flour. Now you might notice I'm not adding that much sugar. I don't like desserts to be too sweet, but feel free to add an additional tablespoon of sugar here, and even add an additional tablespoon of sugar to the egg white mixture. To combine the two, we're going to start by loosening up our yolk mixture by adding a tiny amount of egg whites and mixing them together. Then we will add the egg whites in thirds, carefully folding them together and making sure that as little air as possible escapes in the process. With everything combined, it's now time to transfer the batter onto a lined baking sheet. We're going to carefully transfer the batter and distribute it evenly across the tray using a spatula or a spoon if you don't have one. Don't forget to hit all of the corners and then tap it a couple times on the table to get any air bubbles out. It's going to go into the oven preheated to about 350 degrees Fahrenheit or 180 Celsius for about 10 minutes. With our cake in the oven, now it's time to prepare our fillings. I'm using raspberry powder, but you can also use fresh pureed raspberries if you have them. If you don't have access to neither, you can also use raspberry jam, which will give you a sweeter result. And our second filling is going to be sweetened whipped cream. You can also add some vanilla if you'd like, but I just added 1 tablespoon of confectioner sugar and whipped it until it was nice and firm. If you're adding a lot of whipped cream, or if you just want to make it a little bit more stable, you could add about 1/4 of a teaspoon of cornstarch. If you want to add some flavorings, this is also the time to do it, so you can add something like cocoa powder or matcha powder to make a flavored roll. With our fillings ready, don't forget to check on the cake. It should be ready within about 10 to 12 minutes, depending on your oven. Now that our cake is out of the oven, it's been outside of the oven for about 15 minutes, so it's cool, it's not hot. We want it to still be flexible, but we don't want it to be too hot to melt the cream, right? So we're going to flip it over. We're going to flip it because I like filling the cake on the lighter side and keep the prettier side facing outwards, and gently peel the paper. Now you have to be really gentle with this to not rip the cake. So take your time And then we're going to fill the cake and roll it. Here we go. Here we go. Almost there. And we got it. So we can just trim the edges to make it prettier. Now you don't need to trim the longer edge because that one will trim when it's filled. But I like to keep these edges straight so it looks better because those ones are harder to fix later. So now we have it. So the first thing we're going to go in with would be a raspberry puree. I'm using raspberry powder, which is really natural. It's just natural dehydrated raspberries, and you rehydrate them. But if you have access to real raspberries, that's fantastic. I like personally to keep it not too sweet, so that's why I'm using natural flavor. But if you like it sweeter, or if you just don't have access to something else, then you can use raspberry jam as well. That's just as good. I'm just going to spread it evenly as possible. It's going to give some really, really nice flavor to the cake. Here we go. A little bit more. Now you can see that I'm leaving this side a bit emptier. That's because it's going to be the part when we roll it. Here we go. All good. The next layer that we go in with would be our cream. This cream was stabilized with some confectioner sugar and with cornstarch. So it's really stable. And I'm just going to coat it with a thick layer of cream. There's no such thing as too much cream. And just distribute it evenly. Now I'm going to stay away from the edges to make sure that it doesn't overflow when we roll. It's just annoying to lose cream. And I'm also going to keep it off this edge because, like a sushi roll, you want to roll it with some space in the end to kind of tighten it together. Last scoop. That's beautiful. And now for the last part, I'm going to add some fruit. Now I'm using blueberries, but you can use any kind of juicy fruit that you like. It adds a bunch of flavor: pineapple, mango, raspberries, whatever. So I'm just going to distribute them randomly all around. It's really nice when you cut into the cake and you get like these beautiful shapes when they're cut. No such thing as too much filling. Actually, probably there is, but we're not there. A few more. Here we go. So to roll the cake, we're going to rotate it 90 degrees. And we're going to use the paper, once again, like a sushi roll, to kind of fold it over itself. Okay. And then just help guide the cake forward. Make sure not to fold the paper into the cake. That would be a bummer. And here we go. That's it. So the cake is rolled. We have the seam right here. So I'm going to use the paper to cover the cake before it can be either served or iced. It has to be refrigerated. So I'm just going to use the paper to wrap the cake. Keep it nice and fresh. And it's going to go into the refrigerator for about 3 hours, and then we can ice it.